All right, here we go. So this is tricky for you, Carol, because you're gonna see someone's name really big, but the tiny screen is where it gives you the view. All right, so I'm gonna kind of tip this forward. How does this look to you?
I think that looks pretty good. Can everybody see me? I'll take that as a yes.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Carol Wilder, and I'm the horticulture technician here, and we're going to talk about doing some decorating for the holidays, starting with wreaths, but we can take this to other things as well that you might be decorating within and on your home or inside your home. It's an awful lot like decorating trees, only you're doing it in a small form, and it's a little bit more defined, and because it's smaller, you can actually make them very themed without getting carried away. An example. Now, first of all of these are very inexpensive wreaths that have come from Walmart, Five Below, Big Lots, places like that, so that we can keep the price down, so that you can keep the price down. We're not suggesting that you spend a whole lot of money unless that's what you want to do. And of course, you can get the live wreaths. You can purchase them where many of the places that have Christmas trees also have them. And if you want to decorate them yourself, this can also be used for that. This one, of course, is a silk. And the very first thing you want to do with your wreath, regardless of how you're going to do it, is how are you going to hang it? Does it have its own hanger? Some have them, some do not. If it does not, make sure that you have something in which to make a hanger out of. Now, this is a pretty stiff chenille stem. If you're going to hang or use one as a hanger, we've talked about gauges of wire before, but if this is your first time looking at one of our videos or our Zooms, wire comes in different gauges. The higher the number, the thinner the wire. So if you have a gauge of wire, this is 20 gauge, it's much harder to twist it, but it works great for a hanger. I've got 26 gauge here, and this actually is pretty thin and would break if we were trying to do an awful lot of twisting or manipulating with it, simply because it's thin. You can get even up to 36, but that's almost like wire thread. And of course, if you get 6 or 8 gauge, we're talking about something you'd be using as a lawn staple or something that you'd be using outside or with construction. So as we go, we're wanting something that's going to actually hold the weight of this. It's not super heavy, but we want it to actually support it well. So at the top, all of these have a wire. If you can see, there is a center wire. In this case, it's a pretty heavy cage. On some of the others, like this one, and it's got its own hanger. This is Bethany's, and what we're going to do is we're going to wire on some greenery. But again, this is just a form, and this wire is very heavy. This would be like 6 or 8 gauge wire, which is a whole lot thicker than something that is very, very tiny that you can't hardly see. So keep in mind, you do want some support when it comes to hanging. So with this one, because we're going to hang it and we're going to support it from the back, we're just going to run it through enough so that we have a tie that we can work with as a hanger. Does it have to be gorgeous? No. The nice thing about doing something like this is if that's going to be visible, you can always twist it, and that's going to shorten it so that you can make it invisible. If you're going to hang it on a door hanger or you're going to hang it indoors somewhere, you've got the option to play with that wire. So now we've got our hanger. That's giving us the north end of our wreath. And then the south is where, of course, we're going to put our bow. The last thing we're going to put on this one is going to be the bow. Now, this one I am going to do as a Hanukkah themed without getting too difficult with it. We're just going with blue and silver. And what we're going to do is we're going to simply, because this is the top, this is the bottom, we're going to put the balls around, literally, they're just the blue and silver balls with a little bit of wire, and we're going to wire them so that they will be seen all over the entire piece. Now, the one that's going to go at the top is going to be silver. And the reason is that I always go with uneven numbers, because uneven numbers actually work better. Now see, literally, it is just taking that wire and wrapping it. That way next year, if I want to change this, I want to add something different, perhaps somebody gives me a dreidel or something along those lines that I'd like to incorporate, then I can move these around without tearing up my basic wreath. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to intermix silver and blue, and then we'll put our bow at the bottom. And literally, it's just a couple of twists. Whoops. And when your wire falls out, you just put it right back in again. And do they have to perfectly line up? No. Because on your Christmas tree, rarely do your ornaments make it absolutely perfect within your tree. And then we go to silver again. I think I'll go toward the center on the silver here. And as we go, again, it's just wiring it around the stems. Now, if this was live, we would wire it around the live stems just as well as we would the same with the silk, plastic, or however you have your wreath. It could also be a grapevine wreath. That is one thing that many people do if they grow grapes or you have wild grapevine, is to harvest it in the fall, let it dry. As a wreath, you go ahead while you can manipulate it. Literally, you just make it like a coil and take the last 5 or 6 feet and wrap it all the way around, wire it together, wet it down, let it dry. And then what you have is you actually have then a grapevine wreath. It can also work with some willow. You got to work with your willow though when it's green, because it's going to dry pretty quick. So now that we have, basically we've put our balls on the tree, on the, you can tell where I'm thinking, where we've got that. And I think I might, with this one, you start looking and you realize, you know, I may not have put that where I wanted it. And that's the nice thing about this, is that you have the option to move all of these to where you want them. So at the bottom, we're going to put our bow. Now I've pre-made this. It's a bow that has the wire in the edges around the edges of the ribbon. Just for your information, you can get these just about anywhere, but I've found the big box stores like Costco and Sam's have the huge rolls, and this is all the way to the center. And these run anywhere from $5 to $7 a roll, but you're getting 50 to 100 yards. And if you're going to be using the same theme of color, ribbon, and so forth, then you want to get enough ribbon to go down the hallway and perhaps on the tree and to do your decorating. Now, I apologize, I do have to kind of look at this when I put this on, or I'll end up putting it on upside down by mistake, which would not be helpful to anybody, although it would be kind of fun. And so you have a piece that you can hang that literally, for the time it has taken to do this, about 10 minutes, you have a wreath that has a theme. Now I have one at home that has my husband's grandmother's homemade ornaments on it that we hang on a wall so that the cats don't get to it. And our bottom feeding chihuahuas, and if you have small dogs, you know what I mean, so that we don't end up losing those ornaments. But they make a wonderful, wonderful wreath, because not only is it the theme of something that we really love and we knew the time and effort put into it, it's very unique. So those are things that you might want to think about. Either children's ornaments that have been made, or something that means a lot to you. For instance, this one being Hanukkah. You could also take the colors and everything for Kwanzaa. Anything that would work for what you might be doing through this holiday season or through the new year. You could even go with the blue and silver and then add snowflakes. And this is something that would work all the way through February through the 1st of March on a door or hanging in a window. So that's our first one. If you are working with one that has a form, there are several things you can do with this. On the smaller ones, or a little bit smaller than this, I have taken pine cones, soaked them, and pushed them through, literally push them through the wire, and then they dry and the pine cone holds, and you put that all over it, and then you have a pine cone wreath. You can also, of course, wire them or hot glue them. I like using the low temp on the hot glue simply so that it feels hot. It's not pleasant, but you don't get blisters. And if you're working with children, it's much safer option. But when you're working with a wire form like this, you're going to take, and hold just a second while I grab the greenery. Whoa, there's a lot of greenery. I think some shrubs. They may not have been damaged, but I think they have given up part of their life for this.
It's a great opportunity to do some landscape pruning.
Oh, definitely, because now is the time of year to do that kind of pruning. Now, what you're going to do is you're going to start Doesn't matter where you start, of course. I kind of like either starting at the top or the bottom, and you are going to wire pieces of this all the way until you no longer see the form. I did not know if you wanted to do that or you wanted me to do that here, because that is some time consuming.
It is, if you want to maybe show a few.
Sure, not a problem.
To see how it's done.
Not a problem.
And I can finish it out later.
And there, of course, are different ways of putting this on. Some folks weave them, and you can do that, but they tend to fall off if you're putting them on a door that opens and closes. And you'll see what I mean. If you weave them, you've got to be careful, because it'll only go so far in and you can only go so far out. Now, I don't know if you can see, but that is literally woven through and from the back. You can see where it's going through all of the wire. And then you're going to have some that you're going to actually guide through to the back, down at the tip, so that they will stay where you want them. And you just keep working this all the way around. Now, if you're wiring it, again, we're starting with a good sized stem, putting that into, and I'm wrapping that around the frame. You may not like the way I do it.
You're doing great.
But this I have found to be the easiest way. And you literally, your wire is green, you're working with a green form, you have green plant material. And that is really it. And you start to see how this forms. You can glue or wire some of these back down. And you can see here, by the time I go around this all the way, I only have a few more pieces that I have to do. So we'll go ahead and see how far we get. And again, a little bit of wire just to hold it down. And the fun thing is because you're working with live, that you're going to have, of course, the scent that comes from the plant, as well as when you add other live to it, it really looks like a nice mix of evergreen that you have from your yard, from your mom's yard, from wherever. Now, I can say that most police officers aren't really happy if you do this to public property, and you want to make sure, of course, that you're pruning correctly, or you get permission, and never take so much that the tree is compromised or the shrub is compromised. You always want to prune it as if it was actually going to be growing that way anyway. Now we've covered, and I've just gone around this once, and I would, of course, put a little bit more wire in, but you start to see when you start adding a little bit of color here and there, that you're getting an awful lot of natural look just with that. I don't know if how well that's showing up, Not that you need to see my face framed through there, but there's really not a good way to do that any other way. But you see, and all I would do would be to wire that or to hot glue it in. And of course, with hot gluing, you just hold it until it has cooled and it will set. That gets you started really well.
Thank you. Keep working on this.
Yeah. Now, something else that people have used. Now, I was talking about using grapevine. As you can see, grapevine, it's wrapped. What you may not be able to see is they have put some string around this. I suspect this is not all grapevine. I suspect this is other vine as well. Probably some whips from willow or something along those lines. But if you get one and it looks like it's just a little bit oblong or it's out of circle, it's not quite right, wet it and put some weight on it, and it will, after it dries, take on the shape that you want. These are really nicely done to wrap a little bit of ribbon around them and just put a bow. It goes great on fences, out in front, by mailboxes, things like that. Because you're not putting a whole lot of time and effort into it. It's not gorgeous enough that it becomes something that would be desirable for theft, but it does add a little bit of something to your decorative look this time of year. Now, one thing that we can do is we can take a swag, and the back of the swag, that's all natural fibers. And this is a silk swag, but what I want to do is I want to make it Christmassy. So what I am going to do is I am going to take a little bit of taxus, juniper. If you have a small shrub type spruce, not off of your big spruces, because that's not going to grow back unless you're going to be taking off a skirt. If you've got those low branches and you're going to limb up, it's a perfect way to use that. Holly, boxwood, all of these work really well for this type of greenery. And what I'm going to do is take and work this in so that I'm going to have a little bit of Christmas with a swag that I can later take this off and I can use it for spring. I can use it for summer and put on really pretty sunflowers. So I've got some choices that I can do while I am putting these on. Now, most of these swags that you find will have, before I go ahead and tighten this, I will show you. See, this is how many of them will have a hook on the back. So always pay attention to where that is. That's also always going to be your center if you're not sure working with it. Now, I cut a piece of wire that was way too small. And that's not difficult to do. And that's the nice thing about paddle wire. I always save, if I can, I always save my little pieces because sooner or later, they will come in handy. Now, working this in, again, this is going to give you that little bit of green of the season, and we're going to put a little bit of holly in here as well. And because I know I'm not going, this is not silk greenery I'm using, this is real greenery. I know I want to take it off to be able to reuse the swag. But I do want to give it a little bit more of a Christmas or year-end look. And if you find one of your branches is not going the way you want it to, didn't grow originally the way you wanted it to grow, you can manipulate. And that is very, very easy to do. All you're doing is you're pulling it apart, and you're going to have more than one piece that you're going to go ahead and use your wire with. And again, taking off a sufficient piece of petal wire. And you can get those at most craft shops if you don't want to buy them by the stem. You can usually get the stems someplace like Walmart, Target, wherever has big box stores like that. But your craft stores are going to have the larger amounts. And actually, when you start looking at it, unless it's just a piece or two you need, it really does make a difference to go ahead and get the paddle as far as getting a good value out of it. Now, I'm going to take some of the holly, and I am going to hot glue that, but I'm going to hot glue it to the greenery I just wired. So it's not going to be on the actual swag itself. And as you see, it starts to give you that little bit more color, and it's a texture difference. You've got texture and structure as well as color. And then a piece on the other side, and they won't be perfect. They never are. But that's the nice thing. God and Mother Nature don't make everything even. So even though we are doing two sides to this, they don't have to be exact. Nothing has to be exact. Just like Bob Ross, the painter, says, they're not mistakes. They're happy opportunities. So if you find something that's a little bit too long on one side, it doesn't necessarily mean it won't work for what you want. It means you're just going to have to change a little bit and spark it up. Now, just to do something a little bit different, I'm going to take some poinsettias, silk ones, and work them in. And again, I am going to hot glue them to the greenery so that when I take it off, I take it all off. And it's up to you. Sometimes these dry really well, and you might get 2 seasons out of it. And if they don't, that's okay. And I think I want to do a little bit more on that side. So basically what you're using are things that you already have at home and the greenery out of your own home to decorate. So we have several different types of ribbons. And since I've already introduced red, I am going to go with a little bit of red, but I'm not going to make a huge bow. I'm going to make a fairly small one. And what I do is I start with a single loop. And of course that makes it so that the bad side or the non-glitzy side is showing. So I twist it, a half twist. And then I make another loop with a half twist all the way around. Now, I am placing these loops. We have a video on YouTube that shows how I make these bows. So if you want more detail on that, please look that up. But basically, it's a pretty simple process. We don't want a huge bow for this because this isn't a large swag. And then when I finish the bow, take a little bit of wire all the way through it. And then pull my wire together. And when I do, what you want to do is you want to twist the bow. You always twist the bow. That way you are twisting toward the bow itself and the bow won't be loose or tend to fall apart. And because of the wire in it, it's very easy to place those loops where you want them to be. And I always like to finish up by cutting at an angle to make it look, yes, just like that was what I wanted. Now, with this particular bow, if I can get my fingers on it, I'm going to attach it to a piece of greenery right at the top. Ooh, there it is. It got out of my hands for just a moment. And I always like to make sure with my bows that they tend to be fairly well centered. So now you've got something that can go over your door. It can go over your window on the outside or the inside. The nice thing about using your greenery is it's going to be fine outdoors during the cold. If it gets warm, all you need to do is spritz it with a little water. And you're going to be fine from now until Christmas. And one other thing that you may never consider, and I walked off camera, I know, I apologize, but many things that hang, banners and things like that, you can add a little bit to and make it very, very decorative. This has just got the music and the words to Silent Night on it. There are a lot of different ones out there for this time of year, Let It Snow and so forth. But these are nice because they go very well in a country kitchen, something along those lines where you want something that looks nice, but it doesn't have to be super formal. And you'll have to forgive me, I have the sniffles today. So pardon me. I apologize. So what I am going to do is at the top, I am going to put a little bit of greenery and a poinsettia. And yes, I am going to glue it because that's the only way I'm going to get it to stay. This is not something that wires easily. And all I'm literally doing is just taking pieces of $1.50 type picks from Walmart or from the dollar store, although there are some beautiful silks out there that are, of course, more expensive. And then I want to make sure it's good and attached. I'm going to make a very, very simple bow because it goes with the look of parchment. So I'm making a very small, just 2 or 3 loops of the ribbon, as you can see. And I do suggest that you cut your wire, unlike what I just did. Cut it ahead of time. It's a whole lot easier to keep track of it. But this is just going to be 3 small loops, and that's it. And I've hid my scissors from myself. That's always fun. Next year, we will have these classes in person, and it'll be a whole lot easier. We had them last year, and we had so much fun. Everybody left with different bows. They left with different ornamentation for their homes, centerpieces, swags, all kinds of things. So these are classes that are much easier, of course, in person, but we just don't have that luxury this year. And this is one of those things where you have the option of doing it any way you want. Are there any questions? Well, we are here 8 to 4:30, Monday through Friday. And you can see we're just a little bit, and I'm going to go back in with some hot glue to make the bow stand out. But that's what we're talking about right at the top. What you're doing is you're adding something personal to a piece that wouldn't normally have anything like this on it. So you're making it very unique. You're making it the way you want it to be. And if you're giving it away or you're doing it for your home, you're wanting something that is going to be different and unique. Of course, all kinds of ornaments, things can be hung. One thing really quick, whoops, we got a lot of stuff on the table. If you have your hanger at the top, and you've got a bow at the bottom, don't forget the center of your wreath can also be used. So I don't know how well you can get a look at that, but things like this where you've got bells. Now these don't chime, but you can have bells that chime. You can hang ornaments. You can hang all kinds of things. Many people will put even glass sun catchers made of glass or prisms and hang them at different lengths so that you get that sunburst in a window. And you can hang that in the center. You've still got your bow here, a couple of little things on the side, and you have got something that is very eye-catching, that did not take much time, Didn't take much effort. And, of course, is inexpensive. This 24-inch wreath was $5 at Walmart. Not that I'm endorsing Walmart, just that they can be found very inexpensively and they can be used year after year. So unless you have any questions, that was it. We do appreciate you coming in and staying for our wreath making class. Again, hopefully next year we'll be able to work with you in person. That's always a whole lot more fun for everybody. And then you can see what other people want to do and what they like. And you can get different ideas on how things are done because of what somebody else brings into it. Bottom line, anything that you work with is not going to be wrong. It's just going to be what you want and what you like based on what you have. So always, you can give us a call. I'm Carol Wilder. We're at area code 502-569-2344. We're at 4200 Gardner View Avenue. So please don't be a stranger. Give us a call if we can help you. Look at our other videos. If you have questions, by all means, give us a call. You can email me. It's Carol, CAROL.Wilder, WILDER, @uky.edu. And I'll get back with you just as quick as I can. I don't always have a resource for everything here because I keep things from year to year, but I can help you find something. Or at least give you some ideas on where to find it if you need something specific. So you have a wonderful holiday, and please be safe and be healthy. We'll talk to you next time. Have a good day.